everybody, it's Thursday. So we're going to talk today about securing reports and ways to make reports that you don't want a lot of people to run invisible. But first, okay, I'm George Williams. I am the Next Search Catalog Coordinator at Northeast Kansas Library System.
I'm Christopher Brannon with the Cooperative Information Network and Coeur d'Alene Public Library.
And like I said, Christopher has some reports that he wants to have in the system, but he doesn't want everybody to be able to run. So he's come up with some different ways to, he's come up with a way of making it so that only the people that are supposed to see those reports can see those reports. So take it away.
All right. So today I'll go ahead and walk through this kind of from scratch off of the koha-US demo server. I want to just get away from a lot of the customizations that we've done on our own servers so that you can see what things look like from the ground up. I want to make sure that I'm incorporating everything that's needed as well, because I rely on some variables that may or may not exist on everybody else's machine. So I just want to make sure I'm including all the parts for you to see. But we've had some discussion here in our library about some reports that could be run that might have some sensitive information in it. And with Koha reports, you do have control over who can create reports and who can run reports, but you don't have any control over who can access which reports. And so this is going to
it's an on or off switch. You either
so,
allow people to run reports or you don't allow them to run reports. You can't say they can run these reports and not these others. So
right. And you might have some reports that have sensitive information. You might have some reports that are really for admins only to be using. So this will give you some tools to tighten that up a little bit. Nothing is foolproof. If you have people that edit, they can still change some things or make them insecure. So but this does give you another layer of protection, which is good in this day and age. So first off, let me talk about tabs real quick. A good way to organize your reports is through tabs. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create just a basic report. In fact, let me think how I want to do this. I want to create a new report. And we'll call this sensitive info. And I don't want to go digging. Well, let's see here. Let's do this. Select. We're gonna do all first names. I can't remember if that is the proper. Let's see. Let's do this. If you don't know, then do this. From borrowers. And what we'll do here, select B. This is how I get my fields properly. And E. Surname. Okay. So we've got this report. Let's call this, we're just calling this sensitive info. And yes, I can run it. Okay, we've got that. So let's go back to the saved reports. So that shows up in the all tab, but now I'm going to put it in I'm going to go ahead and edit that report put it in its own tab that I want to secure. And so we will create a new tab here. Call this admin. Save that. And now I'll go back to our saved reports. And now we have an admin reports tab. Oh, I have two? Do I have more? It's interesting.
Did that maybe already exist?
Maybe it did. And I just didn't realize it. I'll have to go back in the video and look. I didn't even look to see if there was an admin reports. And
Well,
it's funny.
that just means you have to watch this video again.
Yep. Okay, so I have these reports in this admins tab, but anybody can pop on here and see that. Plus, this report is also available in the all section. So what we're trying to accomplish here is to make this tab only available to admins, and also keep it out of the all table as well. So the first thing that we have to do in order to establish this security is um, we need to grab the information about the user. In this case, I'm going to limit this tab and these reports to Super Librarian. I'm not going to go into all the ways that you can grab this information, but I'm going to show you some of the basic information you can grab and test against when doing this. So let me go into user. Okay, we have CSS and we have the internet user JS where we put our jQuery, and I am going to grab some information here and I'm going to throw it in the section here. Basically, this is going to grab some staff information and create some global variables and also make it available in a console log so you can see that information. You taught me this. So I'm going to create a global staff username, a global staff category, and a global super librarian variable. I'm grabbing all three of these pieces of information. So you could base your security off the username, you could base it off of the category, or you can base it off of whether they're a super librarian or not. And basically on the super librarian, it's looking for this information if this class exists, it's going to create this. It's going to, by default, before it checks on that, it's going to create that and call it false. And if that class does exist, then it's going to say that it is true.
Okay, that makes sense to me.
So it's always going to, we're always going to have this variable. It's not going to error out if that class doesn't exist. It's going to just create that variable, and then if it does exist, then it'll make it true. And then we will be able to see that information. So I'm going to save this. And now, if I go back, refresh, nothing happens here, but if we
You look at the console.
look at the console, yes, and see that I can see my username, I can see my class, or my group or category, and I can see that I am a super librarian. So the next thing I want to do,
And all three of those things have the same Oh, I see. They all have different, the variable names are all different, but in the console log, you're calling them all the same thing. Your description in the console log is the same for all three of those variables.
Uh, a variation, yeah.
Well, no, I'm not saying it's the description part.
Oh, yes, yes, exactly.
That confused me because I thought they were all three the same thing, but they're all three different.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, yeah. I just copied and pasted it. So I should. Yeah, I created this whole thing. Thank you for catching that.
It confused me. That's why I thought maybe I thought I was wrong about something,
I get
but
your
I was just
confusion.
misunderstood.
Nope. Thank you for pointing that out. Yeah, I created this whole thing. I have some other global variables, and I just copied one of them and recreated this whole section for this very purpose. But I didn't change the output of that. So thank you for pointing that out. So now,
Now, if you reload it, you'll be able to see the names of those. Yeah, there.
there you go. Thank you.
Okay.
So yeah, these are the variables that we would use to get this information. Easy way to grab that when you label it correctly. So we have that set up. The next thing that we want to do is we're going to uh, hide that tab and hide those tables for that specific report category. And so I'm going to, this one is going to go into CSS. Now, you can do this through jQuery, but the thing I like about CSS is that it is a for sure thing. It doesn't, if your jQuery isn't working or um, somebody turns it off or bypasses it in some way, this will still apply, which is really nice. So by default, it's going to be hidden. And
I
then,
think another advantage is that it's a little bit faster.
yes, it is. If you do this for jQuery, you'll see the tab appear and then it'll disappear. This way, it's just not going to show period. So what this does, let me show you a little bit of structure on this. I'm going to inspect this tab, and this tab, uh, the way I identify it is by its name. It's here's the code for that tab that we created, admin, with the dash tab added. So all your tabs are going to look like that. If I go to catalog, inspect that one, it's cat tab, that's the code, but it always ends with dash tab. So I identify that. I can hide that, but then that link is still available. That you get these weird blank tabs if I just hide that portion. So what I need to do is I need to hide the parent in this case. So if I go back to this, you can see that I'm looking for the list item. So we have the list item, the parent of that particular tab.
Right.
And we're looking for the list item that has, and then you use this greater than, and then the actual tab name. Well, this one is incorrect because I used that from a different exam or different system. So what I need is I need the admin. So in this case, change this to admin. It's going to be over here too. This one over here. So this first one hides the tab. This one hides anything that's in that group in the all category. So if I go back to, well, since I am in the all tab, if I look here, I'm going to see that it has the groups category and it has that group right there. And if I inspect that, in this case, I'm looking for a table row that contains the table data with the
The
forget the
data
terminology.
search attribute equals
Attribute,
admin.
yes. Yeah, the attribute data search that has the value of admin. So that code again. So removing the tab, and then in the same style, removing the particular row that has that report in it, or that's in that group. Now, this is going to show an error, and I've seen some weird things with this. George and I have experienced this a little bit. I don't know if it's in conjunction with sharing the screen or having this open, but I was having some issues earlier where it was preventing me from editing this. The code, I don't, is this code mirror that they're using?
Yeah, code mirror is the input overlay for those boxes, and
It
it
doesn't like
was
this arrow.
yeah,
So
code mirror doesn't like. There are a few things that you can put in code that are legal to put in code that code mirror thinks shouldn't be in there, and it'll put that little X there.
right. But
And,
in my
and if you
research
hover
for
over the X,
CSS, oh, go ahead.
if you hover over the X, it'll tell you what it thinks is code mirror will tell you what it thinks is wrong.
Yeah.
And it's expecting a right parenthesis at line 2, column 8, and
Yeah.
it's not getting it.
Probably because this is an operator and it thinks that, you're doing some sort of comparison and it should be outside of a parenthesis, not inside. So yeah. And it doesn't catch it on the second one, which is interesting.
I bet
Anyways,
if you took it off the first one, it'd show the error for the second one. Yeah.
Actually, no, it's not doing that. That's interesting. It's just expecting.
It's something still, yeah. Code
Yeah.
mirror doesn't catch everything.
So this particular error can be ignored. But anyways, we're catching both instances of this report group. We're telling it to not display. So I'm going to save this as is. Go back and then refresh. And you will see, first of all, that tab is gone. And then at the bottom of my list, the last report that I created, it is not there. In fact, nothing from that group is showing in there anymore. So we've effectively hidden that from everybody. Now we need to reveal it to just specific users. And so the last part of this is also jQuery. So we've only done the hiding from CSS. I'm going to go ahead and collapse that for now. The last part, and again, some of this code is copied from another system, so I'll have to change a few things when I go in there. This one is going to check for the report page to make sure it exists, and then it's also going to check that global super librarian variable to see if it's true. If it's true, so basically I'm basing access to this report on whether or not I am a super librarian. So I'm going to change this to admin. I am not going to reveal it in the all reports. I'm just going to reveal the tab. That's all I need in order to get access to that particular report. So I'm going to save that. So basically it's looking for that and basically doing the reverse of what's happening in the CSS. It's just telling it to show it. So now if I refresh, I will get that tab because I am an admin and
Cool.
I will have access to that sensitive info. Couple things that George and I had discussed prior to this recording is, whether or not this information shows up when you're doing searches. If I go in and disable that, refresh. Well, I refreshed while I was on that tab, so
it's reloading that
run
tab.
into this. But I am still on that tab's information. What we hid was the navigation, not the actual table. So there's no way for me to get to that if I navigate out of it. But that information is off the table, but that was report 140. If I do 140, filter that, it shows one entry, but it's not showing that. So it is hidden, even if I go through these means. Um, what you could work around in this case, knowing if you knew the report number, is that, for example, if I know, let me clear that. If I know I can go to a report like this, I could simply replace the report number up in the URL and get to it. So it isn't necessarily 100% secure, but it is, keeping people from being aware that those reports exist. So,
I appreciate that we're showing people how to secure these and how to bypass the security at the same time.
well, like I said, if they don't know about the report to begin with, they're not going to know what that report number is.
True, true.
Um, so, even if, I mean, if they're going through, well, it's important to show that, I don't want to create something like this and give everybody the false sense of security that this is 100% secure, because it isn't. You're always doing things after the fact. Unless they incorporate something like this within Koha itself, anything that you do in jQuery, is never 100%. So you can't rely on jQuery to be your answer to everything.
Yeah. So this used to be this used to work in Koha where you could create a tab in the saved reports, and then you could limit that tab to one branch, and then those reports that were in that tab were only visible to the people that were logged in at the branch that had
Really?
access to that tab. This was a long time ago. This was very early on when we started using Koha. In 2012, this was the case. It was that it, and people saw this as a bug because essentially when the tabs were added to Koha, to the Koha reports, um, branch limiting the the um, the tab group, the report group, to one branch. It used to be that there was the all tab only showed the reports that weren't part of other tabs. And somebody in the community decided that that was a bug, that all should show all of them, regardless of whether they were in another tab, and that the tab would just supposed to act as a filter. And this was around the same time that the reports were changed, that the report subgroup was added, and the report notes used to render in HTML by default, and then somebody decided that having HTML in the report notes was a bad idea,
Mm-hmm.
and so the report notes had were not rendered as HTML. And of course, you and I did a video on the little tiny piece of jQuery you can add to your system to get the reports, the notes to render in HTML. So it used to be that you could put all the things that you didn't want to show up in one library or another into one tab, and that's what I used to do with reports when I was in Idaho. But by the time I got to Kansas, that report function had been broken. It had
Huh.
been removed. So because somebody saw it as a bug. Um, and I remember when it changed, I said, why did this change? And somebody said, oh, we fixed that bug. It's like, that wasn't a bug. That was a good thing. And I
It was
said,
a
can
feature.
we, yeah, I said that it was really useful for working in a consortium like this. And they said, no, 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 that was a bug. And so I said, and I never pursued paying for what I thought it should be. Is I thought it should be a system preference, whether if something's in a group, tabbed in a group in the report, should it be visible to should that branch limitation work. Because you've seen mine, and I've got like 50 different tabs in my system because I've got a tab for each library, because I have many libraries that have reports that are run just by those libraries, and it makes them easier to sort out. So
Right.
so it would, and for most of those reports, it's not a problem. My solution to report security is I just don't write reports that I think have information in them that shouldn't be visible.
Right.
So, and I've done a lot of work to get around that, to make them so that the information that they display as much as possible
Mhm.
is stuff that that's okay to share.
Right. Um, yeah, I mean, if you don't want information getting out, obviously, don't write the report. But I mean, if you've got multiple people that have access to reports and can create reports, you don't necessarily have all control of
Yeah.
preventing them from doing that as well,
So
unfortunately.
that's one of the reasons that it works for us, is because only the people at our office have the ability to write reports. Um, and so I have a different kind of control over that than you do.
Yes.
In other situations, where there isn't a central office, and it would also be different in a smaller setting, where you only have one library,
Right.
or just a couple. And
But
I've
you know, with I don't know how many reports that you currently have in your system, but I mean, it's easy to have hundreds, if not thousands, of reports, and uh, you only want your certain libraries to have access to certain reports and not be
Right.
overwhelmed by everything that's out there, not having to dig through everything, and so it makes sense to be able to limit this. I would love for Koha to bring this back so that you could apply not only just a library but multiple libraries. Uh, I would love it if they would add this, not only this functionality but also add, can you limit by patron category? Can you limit by a list of usernames or borrower numbers or whatever, and if that means that they overhaul this and it applies to other authorized values, I mean, I could see value in that down the road. If you wanted to limit certain things to, there are times I want to be able to limit certain things outside of reports and the authorized values for me for testing purposes. Not everybody has the luxury of having a test server, so being able to control that a little bit more makes sense. I mean, right now, um, those authorized values can be on other items limited by certain libraries, but you're still exposing everybody that works at that library uh, to having access to something that you might just be in a testing phase with.
Right.
So,
So it's
uh,
funny you mentioned report numbers, because on the Bywater Slack, I think in the reports channel the other day, somebody said, "But yay, we just got to 200 reports." And we just hit report number 200. How far have other people gotten? And I said, we're at 3151. But that's the report number is 3151, but we only have about 900 reports right now. Somebody else said, they're at 956. It kind of became a contest of who has the most reports. So that was a fun discussion over on the Bywater Slack system in the reports channel. Um,
then now I'm curious, how many do we have?
yeah,
Now
I'm
I
at
gotta look.
933.
933. Um,
And I have told many people that when I started working at Neckles, which has been almost 9 years ago, we had like 2,700 working active reports. Barely a dozen reports had been deleted in the entire time Knuckles had been operating on Koha.
We
And I
have
got
487, so
at one
not
point I
nearly
got
as
us
much as you.
at one point I got us down to about 860, and I need to do some more cleanup again. Some of these, like the one that's in front of me right now, is the name of it is test. I think if I just went through and deleted all the ones that say test or sandbox, I would probably be down by 30 right there, because it's usually, if you sort them top to bottom to top and get the biggest number on the top, um, it's really easy to say, well, I don't have any test ones in the top 5 here that I can see on the page right now. Let's just hit new and create a new one so I can do some testing. And so if I just got rid of testing, I think I'd be down for 30 more deletions. So,
Right.
but 200, I'm trying to remember who that was. I should look through here. Somebody else says we're up to 2,050. That's a lot of reports. But it was Gretchen from Grove City College said they're excited to draft report number 200 in our system. So congratulations on your road to 3,000.
Our report numbers are only up to 1,084, so it's about double of what we actually have available. So it sounds about
I'm
right.
I'm at 3886, but I've only got
Jeez.
933 in there. So
But that means how many reports have been written and how many have been deleted over the years. I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot of report writing.
yeah, and well, like I've said before, when I first started at Neckles, there were reports called Report for Jim. One of them, I swear this is true. The title was just question mark. And when I ran it, it's like, yeah, that's appropriate. I don't know what this does. Why didn't somebody else delete it? I'm deleting it right now. And of course, the problem that this led to is, I would look at a report and go, God, nobody's run this in a year. And I don't understand what question. I always think of reports as the answer to a question. Somebody has a question, you write a report to answer that question. And all I could think of when I saw that was, what question are they trying to answer? And I couldn't figure it out, so I deleted it. And then, of course, a week later, somebody calls and said, "What happened to that report that Liz wrote for me in 2008 that I only need to run on on the fifth Sunday on that I only need to run once every time there's 5 Sundays and 2 full moons in the same month." And it's like, well, God, and so I have a strategy now for backing up reports before I delete them. So
I figure if it's important enough, it's going to be labeled well,
yeah,
and if it's not, tough luck.
the situation here early on when Neckles was new to Koha was that there were 3 or 4 people writing reports. And so somebody from a library would call and say, I need a report that does A, B, and C. And so somebody would write that report. And then a week later, somebody else from a different library would call and say, I need a report that does A, B, C, and D. And D could be added to the ABC report without
Right.
affecting it. But instead, they just
Exactly.
wrote report for A, B, C, and D. And then a week later, somebody would call and say, I need a report that does B, C, and D. And so next thing you know, you've got 3 reports. And so a lot of the work that I did in report cleanup involved merging reports and putting better notes on them. So
Reports have come a long way. I'll say that reports, uh, the adding of groups and subgroups was a huge improvement for reports in general. And
for
then
organizing them, definitely, yes.
showing who created the reports and when it was created has been a huge thing. And then when it was last run, those have all been huge improvements on maintaining reports.
Yes, and adding all the data table controls to the list of reports, that was a big improvement too.
Yeah.
Because there were a lot. it used to be you didn't have any control over which columns you saw in the reports table. And so you had to create jQuery if you wanted to remove like the JSON column from the reports table because it only has value to a handful of people in the organization. So if you wanted to make that invisible, you had to write jQuery, but having the data table controls at the top of the table, that helps a lot too. So
Yeah, it does. And it's not just removed. You can if you need that piece of information, you
yeah,
can add that column back, grab what you need, which is
exactly.
really
So
nice. So, all right. Well, I hope this helps some folks out there that are trying to wrangle their reports and have a little bit better control over who has what. Um, make it easier for some of your branches if you just simply want to reduce clutter for certain branches. This is a good way to do it. And hopefully, the developers can see some value in bringing that control back to Koha natively, and maybe even some other ways that we can control that with categories and borrower numbers or usernames or whatever. But here you go. Here's some tools for you. I hope that helps. And we'd love to hear feedback if you've found this helpful or found a way to improve on this. So until next time, we'll see you later.
see you later.